Oh, I'm.
So with Kevin, as we warm up the internet tubes, we'll send Kevin out to socials to help us with comments and questions and show ideas. Yes. All right.
See what I can do.
Goodbye, Kevin. I'm removing you from the live stream, but never from our hearts.
Oh.
No, yeah. Okay. Bye. So Gareth and I will take the helm. Hi, everybody. Come on in, join us. Grab a seat, grab a snack, grab your NaNoWriMo helmets. What do you think, Gareth? I think these are pretty natural looking.
Almost.
Yeah, it's I told my stylist, I'm like, more blonde, please. Think Khaleesi. Think Mother of Dragons. To be honest, then he said, absolutely not. I'm not. So that's fair. I pay him to help me not make dumb decisions about my hair in general. But I think this is working. Also, now I think I have to wear it through the whole live stream because I'm going to have maybe a little, just a mark on my forehead because it's
going to be a permanent fixture then for the remainder of October and the entirety of November.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, on November 2nd, when we do our live stream with Grant Faulkner, I'm going to figure out a way to perch my birthday helmet, those pointy birthday hats. I'm going to maybe try to get one on top of because everyone needs to understand that it's my birthday first. And then it's like a live stream event with the founder and CEO of NaNoWriMo. Like, just get your priorities.
Just use the magic of blue tack and stick it on.
Oh, fantastic. Maybe I should try blue tack with the Viking helmet that I have for the kitten. Nothing else.
Yeah, that's possibly some kind of animal cruelty.
Yes, I think, I feel there are lots of terrible things that would follow from that. But I have a photo of her trying it on. Well, me forcing her to have a hat on her head, which is not, despite this book, right? It's not a natural state for cats. Who knew? This book makes it look like it's going to be a thing. So shockingly, she did not love it. And now if you don't see me the rest of October and November, you just know that she's murdered me in my sleep. It happens with cats.
Sometimes, yeah.
It's a very cat thing to do. Yeah. So welcome, everybody. How are we doing on time? We're 2 minutes past the hour, getting everybody in and getting their virtual seats. So we will almost be ready to kick off. Oh, the Viking helmet. So in honor of NaNoWriMo and our esteemed leader? I don't know. Grant Faulkner. When he writes, he has his specific NaNoWriMo Viking writing hat. Like, people do things to get in the mood or to signal to their family that I'm writing, please don't disturb me. And so Grant wears a Viking helmet. And so as an epic level sponsor of NaNoWriMo this year, AutoCrit's getting in the mood, right? So I have not just this one with the ever so natural pigtails, but as a variety of Viking helmets that you can, you as participants in the Countdown to Nano Challenge and in our NaNoWriMo with AutoCrit group will get to see all of these throughout the remainder of October and all of November. And you know what? Possibly into the first part of December. So yeah, I know everyone's been waiting for that announcement.
It's Beth's wardrobe management working overtime.
It's true. It's true. It's true. It's the Viking helmet, a respectable shirt, and then like joggers, and house shoes on the bottom. Like, you know how it is in pandemic, Gareth. You may not, though. You're our international man of mystery. So we may never know.
I'm actually on a space station, so it's fine.
We don't want to be. We don't want you to be mobbed by adoring fans out on the streets. So we So let's jump in. A few announcements before we get started. But welcome, everyone, to the first live stream in your Countdown to Nano Challenge. We are so happy you're here. Beth here from AutoCrit, along with Gareth. Say
Hello.
hi, Grace. Hello. So just a couple of quick housekeeping items. um, sorry, I love the comments because people are like, is the Viking hat mandatory? I'd love to say yes because I think that would be hilarious. But yeah, if you have a different writing hat, make your own. Make it your own. Make this experience your own.
As the challenge continues, feel free to post your photos in the Facebook group. Let's see your helmets or
I would love to
hats
see
or
that.
whatever.
Everyone's writing hats. So speaking of the group, so within our NaNoWriMo with AutoCrit group, we did post a link to all of the events that we currently have planned throughout the remainder of October, the entire month of November, and a couple of special events that are happening right at the start of December. So check that out. The link is in the group. We will also, I think, Gareth, be sharing that via email for anyone who may be watching us on YouTube who's not a Facebook user. Absolutely, totally fine. We'll be sharing that link with you. And what you can do with that is not just see the list, learn it, love it, recite it. I laughed, I cried. It was better than cats. You can actually click through there and it'll add all those events to your personal calendar. It works really well on Google Calendar, and just have reminders there for you so you don't miss any of our upcoming events. We have a ton of great author interviews. No spoilers, except that I will give a couple of spoilers because that's what I do if you know me. M.A. Hinkle. Love her. She's coming in for a Monday motivation interview with us. We've got Cass Morris, fantastic author. And so, by the way, all of these are authors who have participated in and won NaNo and published their book from it. So what we're really looking to do is partner with you as authors throughout NaNoWriMo, give you that excitement and that motivation and that accountability to really help support you and be here for you. And, you know, we've got authors lined up. We've got editors lined up. One of my favorites, Ali Mashadi, is coming in toward the end of the month in November to talk about that transition mindset between writing and editing. So that's going to be really, really fun. But to get started here, first live stream for our prep challenge. We have another one on Thursday and another one on Monday. So be sure to mark your calendars for that or visit that that link that we'll be sharing. Oh, did I even put a banner in here for that? Let me, I didn't, but I'll do that as we go along, hopefully. There will also be check-ins via email. So watch your email every day. Just kind of click through that and let us know, just to build that accountability. Let us know you're writing. Let us know how it's going. Plus, every time you click through, and Gareth, is this right? Tell me if I do this wrong. With every time you click through, it's another entry into the prize drawing that will happen at the end of this challenge. Is that right, Gareth?
Correct. We have in our closing stream next Monday, we're going to have a live giveaway prize draw for everybody. So you've got one entry already just for registering for the challenge, but anytime you get an email during this coming week for the challenge, including today's, there'll be a little link or a button that says click here to check in for today. If you click that link, it will tag on our end and you'll get an extra entry for the prize draw. So really just to keep you motivated and accountable for what you need to do during the week.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm also, share in the Facebook group, post your questions, comments, show ideas, photos. That's working. That's working pretty well. Oh, and one more thing. So I feel like Steve Jobs. Oh, and one more thing in a Big Apple announcement. We're going to have something special for you in the group on Wednesday. So be sure to check in like Wednesday, wherever you are, your afternoon. We're going to post that hopefully in the morning time, but be ready to kind of jump in and, play a little game, do a little knowledge check, take a little quiz. So absolutely keep your eyes on the group for Wednesday. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's kick this off with a question. I would love to know from everyone out here watching this live stream, Are you a plotter or a pantser? So plotter, Gareth, is that interchangeable with planner? Because I've kind of been using them interchangeably.
Yeah, it really depends on who you ask. Plotter and planner, pretty much the same thing.
Plotter and planner and pantser, and the ever elusive plantser.
Planter, yeah. Say it all 5 times fast.
I can't. I won't. That's a different kind of live stream. Like just when you do foolish things. Okay, pantsers, plotters, plantsers. Excellent. Oh, I morphed into a planner this year. Wait, is that right? Yes. So, oh, that's interesting. Tell me, Candace, why did you morph into a planner? And how's that going? Oh, here's a good one. 10% plotter, 90% pantser.
Ooh.
Ooh. Oh, the numbers nerd in me loves that. So quick recap for us. A plotter, and in this example, we're going to go hardcore on the differences. The plotter or planner plots the whole story. So when they say outline, they don't have just a skeleton. They've got the whole situation, twists, turns, surprises, scares, if you're writing horror, every twist and turn, and they know exactly where they're going before they begin, which is different than a pantser. And for purposes of this discussion, pantser is just completely opposite. They just have a concept. They're like, it's a field full of unicorns, and then a pig walks in. Like, that's all they've got. And the characters just kind of find their way and lead the story along. So the idea of a plantser then would be somewhere kind of in the middle, where you may have a high-level outline, a skeletal idea, or a destination. So sometimes people say, if you don't know your destination, say the ending of your novel, you won't ever get there if you don't know where you're going. But, pantsers would be like, I don't need that. My characters will tell me when it's done or what the ending is, and I'll be surprised right along with them. So just to kind of really clear that bright line distinction. Oh, love it. Pantsers. In the midst of switching myself to be a planner. Plotter, sort of. These are great. Yep. So there's no right or wrong answer to, let me get that banner out of there. There's no right or wrong answer. Gareth, which are you?
A plantser. In between.
Give me your percentage.
I think is 20-80. Let's go. Let's say that.
20% planner, 80% pantser.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing is kind of worth pointing out with these anyway, kind of as you look at these sort of definitions, they may seem like completely, different to each other, but I don't think it's entirely fair to say that like somebody who's a plotter or a planner will, regardless of what happens as the story unfolds, stick to that original plan. I don't think anybody does that. Even the most hard-headed of storytellers would do that, because things change. Your mind might change on chapter 15 about the way you wanted this certain thing. It seemed really good when you planned it, but now it's not quite fitting, so things change. So all things can always change, but it's really about how much you, I guess, front load your efforts in terms of the story itself is what's kind of going to happen there. But certainly I like to, I think we'll get into this a little more, but I like to, as a number of people are saying here in the comments, have a skeletal idea of what the story is about. And because that's when you have your idea of what's the antagonist, what's the kind of, what's the conflict at the core of it.
Yes, thank you for saying that. And
then take things from there. Maybe you have an idea of the ending, but certainly not married to it.
And as someone in the comments pointed out, genre could play a role here as well. It's not just about the author. If you're a really hardcore type A, plans everything out, versus a, fly by the seat of your pants sort of whimsical, let's all discover as we go. But the genre in terms of like a horror or a mystery, if you don't know the answer to the mystery, how are you going to guide your readers there? So absolutely, I feel like genre could really influence that. It maybe in romance, you have to think about whether you plan for the characters to end up together in a sort of relationship or not, or what the conflicts are that lead along the way. And that's part of the heart of the story. But as Gareth mentioned, one of the ways that it can diverge from the most detailed, and I just saw someone earlier say, gosh, my outline is 17 pages long. I feel like this is the book already. Well, as they start to get to know their characters, then their characters may take it in a different direction, because you don't want your characters to act in a way that's not true to themselves. So let's talk a little bit about that. Your characters. Let me figure out which screen I'm on and get, that moving. So I think there are three big things about your characters. They're going to rule the day, and they're really going to not just advance the story forward, but act in ways that are true to themselves. So they need to be authentic. And the way that you're going to know is that their decisions and actions match who they are, unless there's a good reason not to. And Gareth, tell me about that. So that not just the decisions and actions matching who they are, but what would be a good reason for them to behave a little bit differently or irrationally?
Oh, there's many. And I mean, I think as humans, I don't think we need a lot of excuses to behave irrationally. This tends to happen.
Just at me next time, Gareth. I feel that one. I feel that.
The thing with characters, I mean, pretty much any great story now is about people. It's about the characters. The characters, I guess one of the rules as well is obviously having an active protagonist. You know, the story is about them doing things rather than things constantly happening to them, which makes them seem kind of flaccid and boring. So when it comes to character, they need to be as strong as possible. I think we can kind of pull the curtain back a little here in terms of our opinions on this particular stream. But when it comes to plotting versus pantsing, I think the people who pants it are kind of really in a character centric position where it's like, I've made this fantastic character or characters, and now I'm just going to put them in this place and let's see what happens. Now, the thing with that, I think it's cool. It's a really good thing to do for like a writing exercise and whatnot, but you do have to sort of keep an eye on when you're coming from the plotting or planning side as to what I mentioned previously was, what is the core of this story? When this story or these characters came into your head, what was it at the core of that really interested you and you thought, I'm going to write something with this? What is it that thematically, what is it you're trying to explore in this story? So it's kind of, you got to know that side of things. I find it, especially with something as strict as NaNoWriMo, when it's like 1 month, get the story out and really, really quickly. So that's why we have this challenge to tell you what you need to know and get that ready before the hammer drops on November 1st. So I would say focus on characters, which we'll go into more deeply here, but always know ahead of time kind of what is the thematic concerns here. What about the human condition? What about life are you exploring with this story? So even if you don't have everything planned and it's like they're going to go from A to B to C to D and these locations and all of this, just know what it is that sits at the core of what you're writing. And don't lose sight of that. And of course, it's the characters that bring that out. So they have to be authentic people. They have to be relatively consistent in who they are and the decisions they make. All these decisions come for a reason. And all of you out there, if you have your NaNoWriMo prep pack downloads that we gave, there's a few things in there, including a character creation sheet. And I find it really... This kind of thing really helps. There's also an interview part, so do that for sure. Just like act as though you're like a journalist or someone sitting there and asking these kind of difficult questions of this individual, and get them to answer them. Because the more you understand where they're coming from, the more you can then translate that into how they would react to situations, because two people from completely different backgrounds with completely different experiences are going to react differently to different
Absolutely.
situations.
I love that.
Although
Yeah.
things that can make them not react like they normally would can be things like stress, being under immediate duress or threat, confusion, fear. Maybe they've been drugged up by some antagonist who's trying to keep them captive.
Right. Right.
You know, there's all sorts of different reasons. And again, just plain irrationality.
Mm-hmm.
We're not particularly rational species most of the time. So it's easy to have that. But the thing is, when somebody acts irrational, they rationalize it. So it makes sense to them, but somebody else would be like, "What are you on?"
That is my favorite, and we have a bullet about that in just a minute. But the thing I want to talk about for just a moment on authenticity is readers are going to pick up your book and build that emotional connection with your characters. So you want them to be relatable. You want them to be authentic. And in order to convey that, you as the author have to really understand that first. So Gareth mentioned our character creation sheet. It's a 2-page, which is, biographical details, name, age, distinctive features, likes and dislikes, hobbies, but really dig in on that character interview page, because right at the first, and I think this is a tremendous example of what Gareth mentioned about motivations and backgrounds of your characters, making them behave in certain ways. Tell me about your family. How was your home life growing up? Doing that type of background investigation interview, if you will, for each of your characters gives them that richness of background to have the motivation to react a certain way. So, for example, you have a character that encounters a snake. One character is going to be like, cool, a snake, I'm going to pick it up. So that could be, I don't know, in my experience, that could be like a 10-year-old boy who is afraid of nothing and has had no traumatic experience with snakes. By the other side of the coin, having someone who has this visceral, fearful terror reaction to even a photo of a snake, like dig in. What happened to you? Who hurt you? What happened to you in your background that made you react that way as a character? So understanding who they are and where they're coming from makes them so much more authentic and builds that emotional connection and really makes your readers care about what happens to them, right? Because if your readers don't care about what happens to your character, what's the likelihood that they'll continue reading?
Yeah, and there's something to be said about as you get to know characters in a story. I mean, this can be a book or a movie or even just somebody that you know. I think as humans, we kind of have a gut instinct for consistency and understanding when something feels off and isn't quite right about a character. And readers can get really super annoyed if something a character does just comes completely out of left field, especially if it's in service of the story. That's when it's really, really evident that the author's hand just kind of came in from off screen there and just changed things up for no valid reason.
Absolutely. It's so inconsistent. It can be really jarring. And the immediate effect of that is that it pulls your reader outside of your story. They're no longer immersed and they're like, I'm tracking right along with what the MC is doing and I'm really there. I'm living it. I'm experiencing it. They're like bumped out and they see the words on the page, and that's not what you want them to do. You want them to have it in their brain. But it's jarring, and it really kind of breaks that continuity and that effect of being pushed through the page and into the story. It takes a minute to recover from that. So know your characters and make them authentic and true to their reasoning, unless they have a good reason, quote, not to. And then you can reveal that in little drips throughout your story. The other important part, the second one, is make them identifiable. And that's a really important aspect of doing your character development as well, because having flat characters who are exactly the same, all as one another, makes it difficult for the reader to really differentiate, right? And to experience different perspectives and thoughts and so forth. Tell me, what's your thought on that, making it identifiable and making them stand out?
Yeah, the last thing you need is carbon copy characters
Mm.
that are just the same, that think the same, that talk the same, that act the same. It all just turns the page into a big, it might as well just be the gray, sort of off-white of a printed page rather than any kind of story on it.
It's very beige. That's very beige. Ooh, that's
Yeah,
very beige.
go out
Like,
and paint the town beige.
yeah,
It's
ooh, good times.
there's things like, everybody has different personalities. Even
Mhm.
two people who are tied at the hip, best friends,
Look,
will sometimes
identical
butt heads.
best friends, identical twins. Oh my gosh, right? That even if they're so similar, they're finishing each other's. I was hoping Gareth would say sentences right
Paragraphs.
there. Yeah, nice job. There is still that aspect of unique personality that sometimes can put them in conflict with one another. And best friends, identical twins, doppelgangers, one is good, one is evil type of thing. And you can do that really subtly, but it's still true to the individuality of those characters. Now, the third thing I want to talk about is something Gareth alluded to a moment ago, and that's make your characters reasoned beings. And I want to unpack that just a little. Nobody's the villain in their own story. As a villain, you're taking these actions and you're doing these things, these awful things. You're killing people, you're invading the city, you're whatever, for a reason. And your readers should be able to understand, not agree with, but understand that reasoning. And here's kind of an example. So your villain kills people. Sorry, I've been working on the horror course for a while, so my examples are a little dark. Your villain, your monster kills people. And the reason it kills people is because it believes that it has to protect its eggs or baby or spouse or their homeland or their way of life. Something in that motivation can resonate with your reader in a way that you're like, okay, I see that reason, that rationale. I don't agree with it because I know that I don't have to, slaughter the town to protect my babies or my eggs, but I get it. And it makes your villains even more villainous, if you will, because your reader's caught in that dichotomy of, okay, I see their motivation and it's reasoned out, it's rational to them, but ew, it's still despicable. Ew, it's repugnant. It kind of twinges with your reader's head a little bit. Do you think, Gareth?
Yeah, I mean, it ties in with the authenticity of characters.
Mm-hmm.
Internal reasoning and rationale should be present in pretty much everything, unless, of course, the person is totally out there. But when it comes to villains, yeah, I mean, it can be so much more effective in two different ways. One, if your reader feels uncomfortable because they kind of see where they're coming from
I love that.
personally, and they're like, well, yeah, on a bad day, maybe. But also the other side is when it's put into a perfect rationale by the evil character, but is so monstrous in its justification that you just think, how could anybody think like that? But I'm seeing them think like that, and it feels
Yes.
right. It
Yes.
feels right to them, and that comes across. There's very rarely evil for the sake of evil.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very rarely. Even one way I like to put it, I think once you've been through a number of novels, writing screenplays and storytelling, you kind of become a psychologist in a way. You have to understand human psychology to a very decent degree.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I like to say about these, especially with writing horror, is, for example, even the worst murderous sociopath, they will use people and throw them away like they're nothing. But to that person, the kind of quote unquote normal person deserves it because they were weak enough to allow themselves to be manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they kind of excuse it and put that rationale to bed. So it doesn't have to make sense to you, but it makes sense to them. And if it can be communicated in a sense where you're kind of like, oh, well, I can see how that would work for you. It doesn't work for me, but it could work for you. That really helps bring the character to life. And it's not just the case for evil, obviously, is also for your protagonists should be equally reasoned in their justifications for standing against whatever it is they need to stand against. They have specific, real reasons to do it. I guess the whole authenticity thing comes across all three of these. So they're authentic people with real reasons to be doing the things that they're doing. Don't make it, kind of hackneyed or contrived reasons. What's happening in this story at every turn has real stakes and real things for the characters to think about. Because again, these are, for all intents and purposes, real people that you're writing about. And that's why it's, I guess, so helpful to do all the prep work with the interviews and getting everything that you know about them. And to make them identifiable, don't be afraid to make their histories wildly different, make the interviews wildly different, really get in there and make them stand out. Because one thing as well for identifiability that I like to say when it comes to characters is if you write a passage, let's say you write a scene where 2 or 3 characters are conversing, I would probably keep it to 2 so it doesn't get too messy. But remove most of the direction or dialogue tags and things like that from that scene. Can you tell who's speaking in that back and forth without having to be directed by the narrative prose as to who is saying what? If you can, and they both stand out well, and you're like, yeah, that's Tom, and that's Grace, and that's Tom and Grace again, you're doing a really good job, because the kind of personality that comes through in their dialogue should be spot on and completely identifiable,
consistent and identifiable. And absolutely. The one thing I want to point out about your character creation sheets and the amazing information you'll get through your interviews, it can be tempting, let's say, to share all of this with your reader. And even worse, as just a big exposition dump of information. It'd be like, here is my CV, here is my background, here is everything you ever wanted to know about that character in like chapter 1. Really be very, very selective about 2 things. 1, what information you reveal to the reader, and 2, when you reveal that and how. Okay, so 3 things. Wow, that was terrible. So what I'm an artist, not a counter person. Oh God. So 3 things. What you reveal is going to be nuggets that give the reader just a little insight, just enough for their imagination to take over and to see that connection. When and how you announce this information, or you drip that information slowly throughout your story, you can use it as foreshadowing, just a little hint early on, and then play it back later on. It's like, oh, I get that now. And then how you reveal it, it could be in dialogue with another character. Maybe someone's reading your character's journal. Maybe you just have the character say it, like, it reminds me of that time that I broke the tractor, and that's why I hate tractors now. There are creative and thoughtful ways to intersperse it in just enough information to make it relevant and trigger those emotional connections with your reader. So not everything you identify is going to go in your story, and that's okay. That's totally okay.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the stuff that you do come up with in, for example, interviews and things like that, it won't even make it into the book. It's not even a relevant point, but it's there for you as the author to kind of have that experience, walk in their shoes, and figure out how they might react to different situations, the ones that you have decided or planned maybe that you're going to put them in. So that's really what you're playing with. And do that as it's kind of a role play experience where you're standing in front of a mirror and pretending to be this character. I don't know, I'm sure a good number of people who are watching do this kind of thing where you're standing in front of a mirror and moving back and forth, trying to pretend to be 2 characters in the middle of a conversation to try and get it sounding right.
Can we poll the audience on that? Tell me if you do role play out loud, like in a mirror at your house. I've never heard of that, and I think it's such an intriguing idea.
Maybe not in the taxi driver sense.
Not exactly like that.
You talking to
But
me?
yeah, how do our viewers kind of help themselves get in character or have conversation? How many of you have out loud conversations between your two or more of your characters? That's amazing. I definitely have seen a lot of authors do internal thoughts, or they're thinking about the conversation and they kind of react out loud. It's fun when you have other people in your home and you're like, what now? And you're like, was that for me? That wasn't for you. I'm talking to the people in my head, and that's a different thing. But
I got JC. No fight scenes though.
Ooh, nice.
You have to
Yes.
buy a new coffee table every other week.
Oh, people, yes. People having their spouse like join in and play the other character, or doing it in as an inner monologue. I find that fascinating that people can. I would feel so silly doing it in the mirror, but I bet it's really interesting. I wonder if some of our viewers would try that out for us and see if that kind of
see if the family starts looking at you weird as you're putting on different voices and speaking lines aloud. It's like, what are you doing? That's why you keep your own room.
Weird, so do you think it's going to be a lot worse around here with this? No, it's not.
So anyway, back on topic, it's really about stepping into those shoes. As I said, all of this kind of there was a comment previously, forgive me, I didn't see who it was from, but it stood out to me there, which was character wise. Okay, so it's maybe not plotting, but it is planning. Correct. And I guess this is where we sort of fall, is you want to be super clear about who your characters are getting started, especially on November 1st, and understand the core of your story. What is it that it's about, rather than, as I said, the A to B to C to D, because things will change. Your character might decide, you know what, yeah, I'm actually going to get in that car, and you didn't intend that. You think, actually, that's going to make the story more interesting if we do go down that route. So let's just be aware of that, but get super, super clear on who your characters are, and stand around and look weird for your family while you have conversations in different voices.
I'm sorry. Someone said, I do the romantic scenes in front of the mirror. Then they threw me out of the furniture.
It was before it got to the bed.
Oh, yep. That's what happened. So the other tool, now, if you don't have your prep pack where we're talking about these character creation sheets and what I'm about to mention now, I'm going to pop up a quick banner here. Got prep, download the pack. The other part of the prep pack that you'll find immediately helpful is this. This is our World Builders Workbook. And especially if you're in a kind of fantasy genre, or you're building worlds that are wholly different than what we live in today, or if those environments, there's physical environments or political landscapes or religious intonations, wildlife, climates, if those things are informing how your character developed and why they behave the way they do, jump into this World Builders Workbook and start thinking about those impacts. And I just want to get a good example. Climates. If your main character, or if any of your characters are from a desert climate, what does that look like? How does that inform their behavior? So using these two in conjunction will give you a really robust character with reason and rationale to make them more authentic, but then also give you more information about the scenes and settings that you're using. So, my goodness, I should not do these on bin pickup day. Thinking about the technology that's at play in your world, even if it's the world of the, Canada in the 1980s versus Canada today, or, a completely sci-fi situation that has technology that's unlike any we've ever seen, or if it's fantasy and you have magic involved, how does this all come together for not just your physical surroundings, but also informing your character creation. So definitely take a look at both of those. If you don't have that link, we'll post it in the group and we'll post it on YouTube as well. We may have already done that. I switched away from the comments. Yep. And
Naomi,
yes.
the contents in the world builder are the same as previous, I believe. It's got updated cover and everything, but I think the sheets inside are the same. So if you still have a version of that, just go back and use the old one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's see. Do we have another slide or whoops, I'm trying to click on the wrong screen. Yep. So know your characters first, build your worlds, especially as those worlds inform your character and give them more depth and reason and rationale. And then, you know, obviously, of course, with the World Builders Workbook, you'll have those physical surroundings, and those can inform actions and scenes and, you know, kind of story arcs that have to do with the character's interaction with their surroundings. So that's really what's going to, the characters' interactions with one another and with their surroundings are what's going to propel your story forward. So having that World Builders Workbook at your fingertips, think about the technology, the climates, the political atmosphere, the not just the overall world, but the nations within that world. Are they at war? Are they, you know, amicable? What's that relationship like? All of these will help prepare you for realistic, emotionally connected characters that are going to really engage your reader to experience the book and not just see the words on the page.
Yeah, this is the kind of planning that will really do you well for November, especially like if this is your first NaNoWriMo and you're not quite sure what it's going to be like, trying to get an entire novel out throughout that month. It's hard enough with you know, just how long it takes to write a novel and then your own personal time each day during the month trying to get your daily word count in, and we're going to have live write-ins to help with that. So do come along to those. But this kind of planning, especially if you have the workbook, is really to get it all in line before you start. So this isn't stuff that's relevant to the plot. This is stuff that's relevant to everything that surrounds the plot. And what brings your settings and anything within your story to life outside of the characters is the characters themselves, because all we are privy to is how they interact with that world. So it's going to be so much easier for you if, let's say, you're writing a sci-fi and one of your characters gets their hands on a certain gun, like a laser pistol or something. If you already understand by that point when it arrives in the story, because let's say you didn't expect the character to get one because you didn't plot for this. So now that they have it, you might end up just kind of stuck there like, okay, so how does this thing work? And then you make it up as you go and it doesn't come across particularly convincing. So if you have the how it looks, what are the limitations of its use, how does it work, if you understand all that ahead of time, then as soon as that character picks that thing up, you as the author, you understand what they're working with. It's as easy as if they picked up a mug of coffee, you know, because you fully understand what a mug of coffee is and what you can do with one, and everything feels consistent. So it's all about that consistency. So yeah, certainly the workbook will be totally invaluable for you, as Beth said, especially if you're writing really imaginative stuff like sci-fi and fantasy or even urban fantasy, because there's sections in there for magic, you know, types of magic, who can use it, what are the limitations, you know, is there any kind of suffering involved, or you can really build your own toolbox there and then just reach into it for your characters. So it's really easy to stay in the flow that way if you get that kind of planning done ahead of time. And that's I think it's really what we would recommend today, is like know the characters inside out before you start, and know
in their heads.
Know the world that they're going to interact with. Whatever happens inside of that is up to you and your plot. But again, do be aware of the thematic core. What is it you're exploring in this story? So it's not just a kind of nothing tale of people doing things that don't really matter.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Let's jump in and see if there are any other questions in the community. I did see Jessica asking about the link. So if you don't yet have your World Builders Workbook or your character creation sheets, AutoCrit.com/nano participant. You can get those downloads. We will also post this link in the comments on YouTube as well as in our Facebook group. Someone asked if the World Builders Workbook is that one that was shared and it's in Google Docs, but I don't think that's the same thing. Is that right, Garrett?
Google Docs.
Yeah, I think it's a PDF that got sent out.
Good question. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
yes. I believe the entire prep pack in a Google Drive. I think it was. So yes, it'll be the workbook that's in there among everything else. Speaking of everything else, we can segue off that a little more. The thing with anybody out there who's watching on either in the Facebook group or on YouTube, let us know if you've never done NaNoWriMo before, and you don't know what to expect, or you really don't have an idea in your head just yet. But that's what prepping is all about. Get ready and start slamming the keys on November the 1st. But the pack includes a selection of writing prompts. There's a little booklet in there to help you with different genres. You can even try mixing and matching 2 or 3 and see what your brain comes up with. And there's also a document with kind of template beginnings for stories. So you may be able to kind of breeze through that, see if something catches your eye and think, yeah, I could start there. And that's all you really have to do to get started is the things we're recommending here. So know the characters, come up with some interesting characters through your character worksheets and your interviews. Interesting people, that's all that matters. You really don't need anything else about them except that you've developed an interesting person. Forget about the outside world that you're going to put them in, as long as the person is interesting to begin with. Then use your workbook to figure out your settings, what you're going to do, come up with some cool magic or technology or different sects of cults and things all over whatever you're dealing with in your genre that you're approaching. And then when you've got a kind of an idea of what it is that you want to say with this thing, have a look at the openings and go, yeah, I'll start the story there, and just put your characters in that position and see what happens.
I love that. And the fun part about putting your characters either face to face with each other, 2 characters that wouldn't normally interact, it just spins up this different level of creativity to just have them interact as a side exercise to get your kind of imagination flowing. Put them in a unique situation and let them interact and see what happens, because those characters so well, and what their motivations and the rationale are, and that they're going to be consistent. Like how you can put them together in these unique situations and kind of let them show you what happens. It's a great way to let your characters drive that story, and it's very much a pantsing-esque sort of exercise to do. So we're seeing a lot of people pantsing-esque. I love that we just make up words now. This is what we do. There are a lot of folks who are saying it's my first time doing Nano.
Hey, no, don't be scared.
Yeah, don't be scared. Don't
it's
be
good
scared.
Fun. As we said, during November, we're going to have write-ins hosted by Beth. So she'll be there with you to keep you occupied for an hour and make sure you're getting the work done. And put the words down. I think one thing that is really to be stressed again for NaNoWriMo as well, this is a first draft. You're not writing a novel start to finish and having it completely ready to go. And, December 1st, I'm going to hit publish on Amazon and it's out there and selling. Not quite. You're putting down a first draft. After that, you're going to have to edit it. You might do 2 or 3 drafts, figure out you're going to move some of the story here and do this before it's a final book. We can help out with that in January with our other book editing challenge that we're going to run. So,
oh yeah, that's going to be so fun.
I'm sure Beth probably has the link there. I think it's on that page anyway. We have the special offer running.
It's on the NaNo page.
You can get a hugely discounted AutoCrit membership, and that includes access in the January challenge. So it help you get your book prepped at that point.
Yeah,
but yeah, don't be too scared because it really is a first draft.
And it's going to be. It should also be fun. Right? All of this is about being creative and getting your work out there and having fun doing it, because I don't know about you, but I don't like doing things that aren't at least a little fun. That's why I don't play golf anymore. I mean, come on, just having fun and holding yourself, giving yourself that little extra accountability by joining our group, by coming to our write-ins. And, you don't have to really even talk, but knowing that someone's going to be there waiting for you to show up so you can get your time set aside and really protect that writing space and get some words on the page. If you do a character exercise, if you take a side journey to figure out a plot point, it's really just about protecting that time, having that additional accountability and support to give you that space to be creative and get your words on paper. Now, Gareth, you mentioned the challenge, which we have coming up in January, for NaNoWriMo participants. That is also, it is part of our Nano offer, right? So if you subscribe to AutoCrit as a new subscriber, we'll enter you into the challenge. For our current subscribers or our lifetime members, that challenge is also going to be open for you if you're doing Nano. So what we're building with that particular challenge is an opportunity for people who have this shared experience of Nano, which is very unique and very getting 50,000 words onto a page or a virtual page. You can use a typewriter, do your thing, but having that as a common shared experience and a common shared starting place for the Book Editing Breakthrough Challenge in January. I'm going to do a spoiler. Kevin's not on here. Jocelyn's not on here. So I'm going to do a spoiler because, always. We are looking for opportunities to do a lifetimers only challenge separately, but that's not related to Nano. You can do one, you can do both. If you are participating in Nano and you're already an AutoCrit member, we can absolutely get you signed up for that challenge. So we will provide some more information about that in the comments on Facebook and YouTube as well. I'm going to even write myself a note for that.
Well, Beth does that. I've picked up a comment there, how to decide the antagonist. Yeah, that's a good question. And it's something that takes a good bit of thought when you're kind of coming from nowhere. If you haven't figured that out immediately when the story came to your mind, this is going to be a story of this against this. When you have your characters ready to go and you've made your kind of have an idea of the world and things in it, and you're ready to kind of put them into a story and get going, the antagonist ties back to that idea that I mentioned of knowing the core of the story and what it is about. Because your antagonist ideally should reflect something about your main protagonist or protagonists. They're clashing for a reason, and the reason that happens in good storytelling is to reveal something about the protagonist, to take them through, basically through hell and back, to change them and teach them something about the world and themselves, and perhaps change the external world itself for good. So, depends on what you're writing. Think about the core values of your main characters. And then that will naturally, if you turn that around to the antithesis, it will naturally give you an idea of an antagonist that they would go up against, because they're holding almost opposite values. Not entirely, because it can be very nuanced, but certainly in a way that's, as we mentioned very early on, against the main protagonist's rationale.
Now, Gareth, I'm thinking of that article of are there only 7 types of stories, in the world? Would that be a good article for us to share and give people some thoughts on that major thematic situation?
That's going to come in on Thursday.
Oh,
so we'll be talking about that in the next stream.
That's right. That's right.
Beth continuing with the spoilers.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
You're not always on purpose. What can I say?
we'll talk about that a bit more later in the week. But yeah, and then the nature of the antagonist is kind of driven by the setting and everything else around it. Because if you decide you're going to write a horror story and it's set in like the dark back Louisiana bayou, then you're probably going to want to have some kind of creature or weird things living in the swamps. Whereas if you're doing a sci-fi, then you have a lot more breadth for the antagonist. Is it an invading alien force? Is it some kind of mega corporation in like a cyberpunk sort of setting, you can come up with different things at that
AI.
point.
Yes.
Sentient AI. Yeah, it can be so many things depending on what you're writing, where you're coming from. But use your character work in the beginning to kind of form that idea of what's kind of going to be, what are they really going to go up against? What is such an affront to them that the as they call it, the call to adventure works, and doesn't feel contrived, because it's like,
Right.
oh, okay, I want to have this.
It's,
I want to have this character go up against a sentient AI for absolutely no reason. So it's got to make sense.
right. Yes. And that gets straight to the heart of the rationale and the authenticity of why your character would choose to enter this battle against the sentient AI or the monster or the, sister-in-law or whatever it is, like that's causing that conflict. Having that motivation, whether or not your reader agrees or approves, at least they understand, and that's what's creating that emotional connection. Oh, this is so exciting.
Always a straight through line.
Yes, Gareth mentioned already, we do have another live stream on Thursday. This one will be about story arcs, so we'll get more into that, and we will share that article that I alluded to then as well. I just wanted to bring up really quickly, I was just reading an article about Ken Follett in Entrepreneur Online, and the article is going to go in our link. I'll drop a link to it, but it truly is Ken Follett's secret formula for writing success. So if you don't know Ken Follett, he is I would call him, I guess, a fantasy writer. Is that right? So Pillars of the Earth. I'm listening to one of his books right now online. I don't have one right behind me, but fantastic, very prolific author. He has a thought in here around plotting, and I would call him more of a plantser, because he says, I get an idea of what direction the plot's moving in, and then I start to think of the people who are going to be doing all the stuff. And that's really what we're going for here. You have that kind of vague idea, and then really dig in on the people that are going to be doing that. So, and the characters have to either screw up or get screwed. If nobody gets in trouble, there's no story. To Gareth's point about the conflict. And while we're on the subject of characters, Follett says it's essential to make them relatable. And we've talked about that. It's just perfect timing for this article to come across my inbox. One essential feature of a best-selling novel is that the reader has an emotional reaction to the story. The kernel of the thing is the reader shares the emotions of the characters. And you really won't be able to powerfully convey that until you really get inside your characters' heads. And that's where these come in.
Yeah, that's where the, I guess,
historical
the challenge.
Fiction. Thank you.
Yes, historical. Yeah. That's where the sort of challenge aspect of this comes in as well, because as Beth said, our next stream is on Thursday. We're talking about story arcs, so we're going to kind of get a bit more into edging towards plotting there, maybe. But we, I guess, as you've all probably gathered so far, we like to keep strict plotting at arm's length, because I don't think it's really helpful. But we're certainly moving towards that to help you on Thursday. I guess the word is internalize how story arcs work. If you have that done, that's a major step forward for just kind of storming ahead in November, when you understand that the ebb and flow of stories, it'll really take you leaps and bounds ahead, and stop getting it. It won't be a roadblock in your way throughout November. So understanding those is really important, and we'll do that on Thursday. But until then, I guess what we want you to do, I guess it's today and tomorrow. So good luck. Is come up with your characters.
Do your homework. If you want to go
interrogate them.
I'll do this. Yep.
Yeah, get them interrogated thoroughly. Really get into their shoes. And use your workbooks there and plan. If you don't even have a story in mind yet, still do that. Come up with people, come up with places, come up with things, and then have a look in the prep pack for your openings and some of the writing prompts. And hopefully within just a couple of days, you actually have a story. You're like, okay, I'm going to write about this.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so excited for this, you guys. Nano is going to be so much fun. I have complete confidence that we will all get through this together and we'll have a good time doing it. So with that, we will see you again live on Thursday. And if you have questions, comments, show ideas in the meantime, pop them over into our Facebook group, NaNoWriMo with AutoCrit. We'll also post the links for things like the pack download, this amazing article with Ken Follett. I'm going to post that as well. And we will see you again on Thursday.
Yes, don't be a stranger. Say hi in the group.
Yeah.
And let's see the hats.
Let's see the hats. Oh yeah. I'm scared to take mine off. I'm going to have like a mark, but we're best friends now. So that's how it goes. Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone.